What's going on, everybody? Russell Lewis here, and I hope you all are doing well. I just knocked out an interview with the one and only Major General LaBruta. And talk about a leadership journey, he definitely has a very unique leadership journey. He went from 2 stripes as an airman first class in the United States Air Force to 2 stars, retiring as a Major General in the United States Air Force. So he talked about his journey, some things he wished he would have done differently within his journey, his leadership perspective, and how you can become a phenomenal leader and kind of follow in his footsteps. So I hope you all enjoy it. I am a captain in the United States Air Force. I am an air battle manager, and I created a platform where civilian and military members can connect with the next generation of leaders. I understand the importance of mentorship because it changed my life. And I want to make sure that everybody gets that opportunity. So without further ado, welcome to Mentorship Moments. All right, so welcome back, everybody, to Mentorship Moment. I am joined with my former commander, the one and only General LaBruta. Sir, what's going on?
I'm doing great. How are you, Russell? Good to see you again.
Sir, this means more to me than you can know. I truly appreciate it. You spending time with me today. And you are the person that literally changed my career. I mean, literally. You had a hand in that, and I am forever grateful for it.
Well, I was an assignments officer at one time in my career too, so there might be some other people with differing opinions, but I'll take good news when I hear it.
And I say that because for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure 99.9% of the people that tuning in, they don't. General LaBruta actually wrote my letter of recommendation to help me cross-train from force support to become an air battle manager. So that's why I'm forever grateful. If there was one thing you could redo over the course of your military career, sir, what would it be?
Take more leave. And this is my recommendation to everybody that's out there. My wife and my daughters, my spouse and my daughters, are the most important thing to me. But at times I put the mission before them when I didn't need to. There are times when you got to put the mission first, right? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But I had a tendency to spend too much time on the work thing and not enough time on enjoying my family, and especially my girls. I say my girls, they're both young women now. One is 28 and the other one's going to be 22 here in the next 2 months. I would give anything to go back and spend more time with them when they were little. I enjoyed those times immensely. I loved it, but I didn't take enough leave time. Man, I was losing leave every year. And back in the, even now, I think people believe it's honor to lose your leave. I say BS on that. And I didn't know that until late. I didn't know that until I was a senior officer. And it's because somebody pulled me aside by the name of General Dave Gillette, who hired me to be the 72nd Air Base Wing Commander, the Wildcatters. And he said, "Hey, Bob, how come you're at the job all the time?" I said, "What do you mean, sir?" He says, "You got to take some leave." I said, "Well, sir, we got this and that." This. He says, "Listen." He says, "You know what the sign of success for a commander is?" I said, "No, sir. What is it?" He says, "How good does the organization do when you're not there?" He says, "Because what you're supposed to be doing is making sure that your vice commander and OPSO and all those squadron commanders and their deputies have opportunities to lead. And if you're taken out for some reason, that organization has got to be able to hump. And guess what? If you're always there, I can't ever make that assessment. And that's a problem on you." So I took that to heart. But that's as a colonel in my first wing command that somebody pulled me aside and said, "You're not doing this right." So treat it like money, because that's what it is. It's an investment, man. It's an investment in yourself, because you've got to be able to preserve your energy. You've got to make sure that you're there for 2 years of command. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon. And I did 3.5 years as the 502nd Air Base Wing Joint Base San Antonio commander. I did 3 years and a quarter. And let me tell you, the fumes on that last quarter were there. At least I had found a little bit of a formula on taking time out, making sure that I'm taking leave, investing in my family, investing in myself to actually regenerate, recharge, remotivate myself, so that I was there for the organization full capacity the entire time. And that's what I suggest to everybody. You are not that important, okay? The mission is there. it's going to be there. And oh, by the way, your folks are going to step up and they're going to water your eyes with how good they do without you. And you can't see that as a threat. You got to see that as you're doing your job because you're supposed to help them develop, right? And they can't develop with you being there all the time. And I learned that. Maybe not as good as I should have early on, but I learned it late. And that's something that I'd suggest to everybody. Take your leave. You're earning it. Take it every single year and take not just a couple of days. I'm talking about take a week or a 2-week period of time where you are out of there. You're investing in yourself and your family. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to have great benefits by doing that.
Sir, it was an absolute pleasure having worked with you in all forms, even just being able to speak with you on those occasions where you came into our squadron. It's something I truly appreciated. And you had a very rare quality that I saw, and not too many leaders, but some. But for you, it was just amplified. You could connect with just about anybody. And I wanted to ask you, how did you develop this leadership style, and how did that guide you through your career?
Well, Russell, I mean, one, I appreciate that. I love to hear that it was a positive experience for you. Just as much for me, quite frankly. And when anybody, asks for your opinion or wants to ask me anything related to the United States Air Force, my career, etc., it's truly an honor. So thanks for having me on your podcast. As far as my leadership style, I think it probably was developed back when I was in Airman First Class. And I still recall senior leaders. I remember J.B. Davis, General J.B. Davis, and General Billy Bowles. I remember a Christmas party that we had. I was a part of the Air Force Manpower and Personnel Center way back in the day. This is the 81, 82 time frame, and I was a two-striper, and I'm sitting with all my peers, and we're having a good time and everything. All of a sudden, those two come up, and they don't stand above us. They sit down with us. And for the next half hour to 40 minutes, and this is jam-packed with all kinds of people, they took time to sit down and have a conversation with us to find out what was going on in our lives, et cetera, et cetera. And I always thought, if I ever get to be in a leadership position, that's the type of leader that I want to be. I want to be approachable. I want to be somebody that can engage. And I think that's what it was. But I will tell you, it's not a natural thing. It's something that you have to work on and you have to develop over the course of years, and probably some stumbles along the way. I developed a leadership style that was comfortable for me, seemed to work for me. Not in all cases, but in most of the cases that I was in, it worked out very well. And so if you're inquisitive, you want to find out what's going on in another person's life, you can't do it on the computer. You got to do eyeball to eyeball leadership, and you've got to allow the individual an opportunity to present what's going on in their life, and you have to listen. You got to be an active listener. And I think those are the things that I tried to develop. And I wasn't perfect at it. There was missteps along the way, but that's how I did it, and that's how I learned. I looked at people that I thought were doing it right, and I took those leadership tools in my toolkit. I also took a look at folks that were doing it differently, that were, in my humble opinion, negative leadership examples, and I took those tools in my toolkit too. I used both to try to monitor the way that I was going to lead when I had the opportunity.
So you mentioned you were a two-striper, but when you retired with 2 stars. So I want to hear about that journey. What does it mean to you? And also, for any two-stripers out there right now, what advice would you have for them?
For me, my journey, was incredible. I spent 37 and a half years, almost 30. In fact, it was more than 37 and a half. It was almost 38 years of my life in the United States Air Force. And when you make a determination after all that time that you're going to retire, let me tell you, it's a roller coaster of emotions. The transition process, I'm still actually going through it. It's very difficult for me to take a look at anything going on in the United States Air Force because it pulls me back, because I just love it so much and I'd love to be a part of it again. For me, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, but there's luck that's involved in that journey as well. And so I had some really wonderful people that I worked for and I admired. And, they saw some future potential in me. And as a result of that, I followed the guidance and what they asked me to do. I picked their brains. I wasn't scared about knocking on the door and finding out. No, by the way, receiving feedback. And I'm talking about some tough love. I came up in the day that is not like today's Air Force. And so, a good kick in the pants once in a while was also as effective as giving me a pat on the back. But it was wonderful when somebody would sit down with me and actually give me feedback to tell me, hey, Bob, you're doing these things well, but here's some areas that you can improve on. And then not only leave it at that, but actually lead me in a direction on how I might be able to improve those areas in my performance. And so those are the kind of things that again, it's sticking those tools in your toolkit and learning from those that have been ahead of you and asking them questions and working hard to follow in their footsteps. And that's what I did. Good fortune happens to those that are prepared. I'm a big believer in that philosophy. When I came into the Air Force, I had 45 hours of college credit, but I wanted to get my degree. It took me 11 years to get there. My first degree in the Air Force was a CCAF degree, Community College of the Air Force. And I continued to go to school at night, and I built on that. When I was at the Personnel Center, I played shortstop for the softball team, and we had a guy named Captain Jeff Leptron that was the second baseman. He was the commander of civil engineering for the Personnel Center. He saw some future potential, and he gave me some advice and counsel on what I needed to do to explore commissioning opportunities. OTS was not open at the time, but Air Force ROTC was. And so that's the direction that I went. I became the non-commissioned officer in charge of the administrative portion of ROTC at the University of Hawaii. I was going to night school, performed really well. I became a staff sergeant there, but I had good performance, and I applied for and got accepted into Air Force ROTC at Southwest Texas State University, that's up the street from San Antonio. Colonel Benny Blancett is the guy that gave me the opportunity. Here's some tough love, is that when I applied for two programs. One at UTSA, which is here in San Antonio, and one that's up the road at San Marcos. Colonel Blancett found out that I had my name in the hat for UTSA, and he called me. And he said, Sergeant Labruta, this is Colonel Blancett. Hey, sir, how are you? Doing very good. He says, I heard you have an application in at UTSA too. Is that correct? I said, yes, sir, I do. He says, do you want to be an officer in the United States Air Force? I said, I sure do. He says, and take your name out of the UTSA pile. You're coming to Southwest Texas State University. So, and so that's how it happened. And so I was lucky and fortunate enough to get selected in Air Force ROTC. I got out for 2 years. My wife supported us. And boom, bam, bang, 2 years later, I get commissioned as a second lieutenant. And then I'm off and running as an officer in the Air Force. So all those things led up to opportunities that I was prepared for. And as a result of that, I had more opportunities. And that's what it's all about. It's building your resume so that people take a look at you and go, I can count on this individual. Oh, by the way, you better be good at what you do, and not just good, you got to be great. So for anybody that's out there, whether they're officer and enlisted and they're trying to achieve in the United States Air Force, it's for the taking. It's out there, but you can't be scared of leading, and you can't be scared of feedback, and you can't be scared of preparing yourself. And oh, by the way, paying the price to do that. There was a lot of times that my peers, they're out having a good time, doing their thing, whether it's playing softball or football or whatever. I had to hang up sports for a period of time so that I can concentrate on my studies and get my degrees and all those kind of things. And so those are the things it takes. But job performance is number one. You can't just be good. You got to be great at your job. And oh, by the way, if you get an opportunity to do extra, details, whatever it is, you don't complain about it. You dive into it, and you become the best that they've ever seen doing whatever it is that they're asking you to do. If you have a great attitude, you go into it with a commitment, a dedication that they've never seen before. It's going to separate you from your peers, and it's a competition, right? We're competing. It's one Air Force, one team, one fight, etc. But we're competing against each other. And anytime I had an opportunity to compete, I was going to beat you, okay? Maybe you didn't know that, but I'm in there to beat you because I want to be the individual that's selected for the next opportunity. When I was in admin troop, I was a 702B shred admin troop when I was in Airman First Class. By gosh, I was the best admin troop they'd ever seen. When I went out to do details, and we did details like picking up cigarette butts, going out there and doing yard detail, having these big old clunky glasses and these steel toed shoes over our boots, and we mowed lawns. And I mean, we did real details back in the day. But every time I had those opportunities, I made the most of those opportunities, had a good attitude, and people noticed that, and they put me into positions that others didn't get because of that attitude and because of that leadership perspective. So that's what I tell everybody. Have a good attitude, dive into whatever is given to you and be the best at it, and good things will happen.
Was there ever a point as a young officer that you kind of knew, hey, I kind of got this thing figured out and I might just be able to make it to GO or general officer?
Never thought that. What I wanted to do, I wanted to be a commander. To me, as an officer in the United States Air Force, that is the ultimate test, but it's also the ultimate responsibility. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to become an officer from being enlisted. I knew at the end of the day, regarding how high you go, becoming the Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force, and I've got some, oh man, I love Chief Wright, Chief Master Sergeant number 5, Bob Gaylord. I'm a Gaylord groupie. My dad was a chief, but I always know at the end of the day, usually there's going to be an officer on the other side of that decision. There's going to be somebody that has to be the final say, and that's usually an officer in most cases. And I wanted to be the individual that was given the responsibility to make those decisions. Commanding is what I wanted to do. And once you command, there's nothing else like it. And quite frankly, I think I'm a pretty good personnel officer, a force support officer. But I would challenge anybody with taking me on in command. I felt as though that's the role that I was made for. Again, you make mistakes as you're going through it. I had some fantastic opportunities, but when you're in your first command, you learn and you shape and you make adjustments so that when you get an opportunity again, and I had 6 opportunities in the Air Force, including becoming the 2nd Air Force commander. I only got to do that for a year. Man, I loved that job. I loved every one of my command jobs. And I would suggest to anybody that's an officer, that's what you want to do. You want to command, you want to lead, you want to be out front. And if you're successful, then more opportunities are going to come your way. And quite frankly, you're not going to become a senior leader in the United States Air Force with having a successful command track underneath your belt. And so that's what I would suggest to everybody that's an officer. You got to go forth and don't be scared of that leadership opportunity of command. Go and grab it, grab that flag, have a command team with your senior enlisted leader and his or her spouse, and go out there and lead from the front and do the best you possibly can to grow the next generation of leaders.
What separates a good commander from a great commander?
You got to give them the tools that they need to be able to execute the mission. You got to make sure that you're out there in front and in charge, but you've got to be able to listen to everybody in your organization. The only way you can do that is digging deep, going out eyeball to eyeball leadership and finding out what's going on in your organization. And then depending on the other leaders in your organization and providing them the opportunity to lead. Delegating authority down is critically important. But the buck stops with you. And at the end of the day, if you're successful, then it's a team success. It's their success. If it's a failure, it's yours. Okay? I had plenty of failures. I look back on different things that I've done and haven't done. At the end of the day, I believe I was a good commander. Whether or not I was great, I don't know. That's up to the people that were in my organization to make that determination. But I can tell you this, nobody gave it more than I did to try to be a great leader. That's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to pay it forward. I wanted to invest in the individuals that were in the organization that I was honored and privileged to lead. And at the end of the day, the organization's success was because of all of the people giving me the honor to lead them. That's what it was about. It's not the other way around. It's kind of like an upside down pyramid. You're at the bottom, everybody else is at the top. You're trying to support them in the organization so that they can execute the mission to the best of their ability.
I would always catch you in the gym at like 5 in the morning, and you would beat me there most days. For me, I would look at you as a brand new second lieutenant and be like, man, that's the way to do it. In my opinion, you were killing it in all aspects of life. You were such a personal leader. You were able to connect with people. You were fit. You were outrunning me, literally. And it's like, man, how did you do it? How did you develop this type of grind and mindset?
There's a lot of people that are way smarter than me. There's a lot of people that probably were better at the job than me, but nobody could outwork me, is the way I felt. There's some shortcomings in Bob Labruta's toolkit, and I had to make up, in my mind, those shortcomings with effort. Now, I will tell you that I found in my schedule, okay, I used to, back in the day, I was a lunchtime guy. As my roles and responsibilities transitioned, I found that doesn't work. My first assignment to the Pentagon was what changed my ways, because going to the gym in the Pentagon at noon, that isn't going to work. And oh, by the way, you got a commute that kicks your butt. So I said, you know what, I can do the best of both worlds. I'll adjust my schedule so that I can get, because my fitness is also for me, right? When you're talking about resiliency, okay, there's a couple of things you got to do. I told you about taking leave. You got to sleep, okay? You got to sleep, and you got to work out. And there's a responsibility as a professional airman, as a warrior, right? I saw myself as an operator. I didn't fly jets. I didn't work on jets, but by gosh, if they tapped me on the shoulder, they needed somebody to put a doggone knife in their teeth and have that M16 ready to go. I was ready to do that. And so I felt, and fitness is just part of my style and part of my leadership. It gives me energy that I need, and it's actually a de-stressor. So I adjusted my schedule to fit what I needed to do. And I found that Pentagon tour, when I had it in the morning, and at 0500, it got me out of traffic. And oh, by the way, nobody was going to take it away from me. You can get it taken away from you at lunch by the inevitable, well, you've got another meeting that's just stuck into that time. And so that's the wonderful thing about early mornings. If you're going to war, or if something kicks off from an operational perspective, then yeah, that's going to probably get you out of the gym for a little bit. But I found 9 times out of 10, in fact, I'd say 99% of the time, you go early, you get it out of the way, you're ready to go for the day too, man. It's a great way to kick off your day, and that's what I want to do. And oh, by the way, my fitness was also a challenge to the younger generations as part of my leadership toolkit, right? I believe I probably challenged everybody to see if they could kick the old man's butt, and I didn't want them to. Okay, I wanted to score 100 on my PT test. That's what I wanted to do. It's part of what we're supposed to do, and that's what kept me motivated and charging. And oh, by the way, I'm going to turn 60 here in a couple of months. I have a replaced right knee. I have an ACL. I've got shoulder, but I'm still working out hard because I know that it's one of the things that sets you up for life from a quality of life perspective as well.
Sir, I want to thank you for spending this time with us, man. You are phenomenal. You have led and did it the right way, and I couldn't be more thankful to have worked with you. So I appreciate it. And if you have any last words, go ahead and take us away, sir.
Well, again, Russell, thank you for this privilege. It really means a lot to me that you'd ask an old man, about their career. It was a wonderful time. In fact, it's the best 38 years that I could ever imagine spending. What I suggest to everybody that's been listening is that, my journey is a journey that any airman that's out there can do. There's nothing special about Bob Labruta. If you love the United States Air Force, if you love the opportunity to lead and to work in teams and to actually strive for excellence, there's no better place than our United States Air Force. It was a wonderful opportunity for me and my family. I consider myself a part of the institution for life. You're an airman for life. I love what's going on with the United States Air Force now, and I see a very bright future because of people like you, Russell, and that next generation of leaders that's out there. All I tell you is that set your goals as high as you can right now. Don't let anybody get in the way of those goals. The only one that could get in the way of those goals is yourself. strive for excellence in all you do. And like I said, you can't be just good at your job. You got to be great and the very best. And that's what should keep you motivated. And then finally, it doesn't matter the job or the opportunity. You got to make the most of that opportunity every single time you're given it. And so I tell you, you don't count the days. A lot of people, what they'll do is they're going to look at, there goes another day, and oh my gosh, I'm glad that's behind me. Don't ever get caught up in doing that. Make the days count, man. Make every single day count. And if you set your goals as high as you can, you go after all of that with the utmost gusto, exuberance, great attitude, and all of a sudden, 37 years from now, you guys will be in the same situation, and all of a sudden, you'll have somebody calling you out of your background and experience and ask you to tap into your leadership and your career tips. And that's what's happened for me. So thanks for this privilege, Russ.
You just make sure you stick around, because I'm gonna be calling you like, hey, sir, what should I say?
I'm always there, man. You know that.
All right, everybody. So this has been another episode of Mentorship Moment. You have just witnessed some great leadership perspective from General Labrutta, and thank you. We'll see you all next week.